what you have to understand is that there are 8 billion people in the world, right? And there are plenty of people that relate to your message and how you deliver it. So no, you don't have to be extroverted. If you're quiet and you have more of a soothing voice where you don't want to speak quite as much and you're very pointed with your words and succinct with your message, there are plenty of people that would love to hear this kind of tonality and just engage in that kind of slower paced interaction. It's very common. There is a market for everybody. There are people out there right now with multi-million-dollar businesses that help self-proclaimed introverts learn how to put themselves out there. Welcome to the Art of Coaching Podcast, a show aimed at getting to the core of what it takes to change attitudes, behaviors, and outcomes in the weight room, boardroom, classroom, and everywhere in between. I'm your host, Brett Bartholomew. I'm a performance coach, keynote speaker, and the author of the book, Conscious Coaching. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student interested in all aspects of human behavior and communication. I want to thank you for joining me, and now let's dive into today's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Art of Coaching Podcast. And this is part 2 of our blind spot series. If you haven't checked out part 1, make sure to go back and listen to the previous episode go to artofcoaching.com/blind spot. Again, that's artofcoaching.com/blind spot. Today's episode, quick hitter, something that I think is going to help a lot of you. It's me being really transparent here and recounting some things that I dealt with on my journey. We're going to talk about the 5 lies we often tell ourselves when we start putting ourselves or our work out there more. Now, many of you have written in the past and said, hey, I want to do something, whether it's write a book or a podcast or start a business or just do something to help more people, but I feel like I lack the confidence, the knowledge, or experience to do so. And I hear you. We all have that to some degree. And even, I don't care who says it and what level of fame or celebrity they're at or status within their career, everybody has those doubts. And there are lies. I mean, one thing that we're not often honest about enough is we talk about the power of mindset. You hear that a lot in society, but our mind is not always our friend, right? Our mind tells us a lot of lies. Our mind plays tricks on us all the time. And those things can hold us back from providing value to more people. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. The 5 lies that we often tell ourselves that hold ourselves back. And of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. So if you feel like you have some more, write in, let us know which ones you deal with. But these were some things that I've dealt with, and I know some of our other audience who has written in has dealt with. So I want to share those with you. Lie number 1, you have to be the best in your market or in your situation. And this is pervasive. Sometimes when we're just starting out, or if we're in the middle of our career, or even if we're towards the tail end and we're even more cognizant about our legacy, we feel like we need to be number 1, or we need to go out on top, or we need to be the best. And that's not always the case. You know, much of the time people get way too caught up on outcomes instead of processes. There is tremendous value. Let's say you're somebody just starting out on a new venture. You being able to document that and being able to show people the lessons that you're living out firsthand while you're making mistakes, while you're going through all the bumps and bruises of early stages is incredibly valuable. Nobody learns just from watching people succeed, or, it's a whole reason we started this podcast. It always annoyed me that every podcast seemed to just go after celebrities or people in these coveted positions. I wanted to hear about the underdogs. I wanted to hear about the people out there that were dealing with a lot of different leadership struggles and communication issues daily. That's what I wanted to hear. And those are the stories where you're going to hear about people that haven't made it yet in their eyes or in anybody else's eyes. So you're getting the good stuff. You're getting that organic raw material that allows you to pluck and play and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with right now. So you do not have to be the best at what you do in order to start putting your stuff out there. You don't have to work for some major organization or some team. What you have to do is share relatable, impactful, tactical information. I mean, you don't have to have all the answers. You literally just have to be willing to share what you know. So understand that you do not have to be the best. The best is subjective. Now, that's not me saying that you have a free pass to do less than stellar work, or that you don't have to pay attention to the details of what you're doing. Nothing could be further than the truth. It's me just saying that get over the pride. Don't worry about having some kind of perfect curated Instagram, or that all your work is going to be just meticulously well phrased and you're going to use all the best words and the biggest vocabulary, or that every single part of your brand or whatever you're doing is going to look exactly the way you want it. All of these things evolve. Major companies, major industries, no matter what, worldwide, these things evolve. So you don't have to be the best. You just have to be willing to go through the process. I'd recommend documenting that process. And believe me, you're going to find other people that relate. Number 2, straightforward one here, and a lot of you commented on my social media about this, is you have to grind. Man, if we have not heard that term enough, right? That 5-letter word, oh, you got to grind. Lions, don't worry about the opinions of sheep. All these cliches that we hear, people taking screenshots or photos of their alarm clock and throwing them online. And then people talking about how, all through the night they're working and they're grinding, taking pictures of themselves at airports, overnight grinding. Everybody just keeps going. Guys, you do have to be consistent, without a doubt. If you are putting your work out there, you have to be consistent. You have to figure out a schedule that works for you. You have to work out what your day-to-day is going to look like. And can that be a grind? I mean, sure. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these people who glorify being busy and make it seem like every moment of every day they've got to get something done. That's not reality. Some of the highest achievers in the world, the ones that are actually being honest, know the value of incubation periods. They know the value of spacing their day out. They know the value of saying, hey, if I have 3 meetings in the morning or 3 groups or 3 whatever, I need a buffer period. Now, are you always going to be able to get that? No. There are going to be some parts of your career that it is what it is. And you're going to have to be kind of in that system, or you're going to be in the throes of that. And that's just the reality. You're not always going to be able to collect your thoughts or determine your schedule. But I'm talking about, again, if you're starting a business or you're starting to build a brand or you're starting a process for yourself, it doesn't have to be this all or nothing thing where you're just launched out on coffee or monsters and everything else. You have to figure out something that works for you. How do I know this? Because I fell victim to that too. I mean, a lot of that is the culture of strength and conditioning, just grind and grind and grind. So what did I do? I transferred that to my work, my creative work, whether it was writing a book or making any of my courses prior. It was this constant feeling like it needed to be output all the time. And I just felt drained. And it certainly wasn't because I didn't love my work. It was because I wasn't letting some of my best ideas come to me. And that's another reason why I've always hated that one phrase. And I think it goes with the whole grind thing is, how you do anything is how you do everything. That's complete trash, guys. How many of you, mow your lawn like you love your wife or husband? How many of you address, the errands that you do, like some of the most critical reports you have to do in your job? How many of you, focus on, you just think about all these day-to-day things, and where do these cliches come from? A lot of it is just meant to throw us off track. It's meant to kind of feed this whirling dervish of anxiety that we create internally, and you burn out. So you don't have to grind. If you want to start something and you need it to be successful, you just have to make it consistent. And that can be on your terms. You got to figure out what works. Not everybody should write a blog every day. Not everybody should do 2 podcasts a week. Not everybody needs to do any of that. But whatever you do, make sure that you're consistent at it. And then when everybody else is glorifying, being busy and all this stuff, and they've burnt out in a series of months or maybe 3 years, you'll be riding that steady state to success, over the decades to come. And that's the key, being able to plan for the long haul, not submitting to this short-term mentality. All right. Lie number 3, you have to be extroverted. Now, I'm not going to go into some nuanced empirical defense of this statement. Susan Cain has a great book, and we usually don't, promote a bunch of stuff on this show, but I remember reading her book, Quiet, I believe it was, and she talks about this. And there's this misnomer that we live in this world where extroverts win. And you have to be careful because the availability bias or heuristic will certainly make you see those things. You'll see people on TV, you'll hear people on this, you'll start to notice seemingly extroverted people everywhere. And there's a couple mistakes with that. Well, one, you're mistaking the fact that many of these people aren't extroverted. It's just the situation. This is something I even learned about myself. I always thought I was pretty extroverted. But then as I got more and more into just whether it was coaching or whether it's even this podcast or certainly doing speaking events, I realized how draining some of these things were, and I love them. So it's certainly not something that I feel like, oh, I have to go do this. It just takes a lot out of me. These interactions can take a lot out of you. And so, one, don't make the mistake of thinking just because somebody seems extroverted that they are. All of us have those little pieces of ourselves that if we can become really animated if we think about it. And I've used this example here on the show before, but I have a friend who is extremely introverted, yet they love food. And if they go to a restaurant and they love that restaurant, I am bound to get a call or a text or maybe both that talks about how great this restaurant is or how great this movie is or how great this is. And they like come to life. And we all see that, so no, nobody is clearly and only an introvert or extrovert anyway. It's not that simple. We all have different situations that are going to bring different aspects out of us. What you have to understand is that there are 8 billion people in the world, right? And there are plenty of people that relate to your message and how you deliver it. So no, you don't have to be extroverted. If you're quiet and you have more of a soothing voice where you don't want to speak quite as much and you're very pointed with your words and succinct with your message, there are plenty of people that would love to hear this kind of tonality and just engage in that kind of slower paced interaction. It's very common. There is a market for everybody. There are people out there right now with multi-million-dollar businesses that help self-proclaimed introverts learn how to put themselves out there. There are. And that's the beauty of kind of the age that we live in, is no matter what you identify with in terms of where you are in your career or what problems you're trying to solve, there's people out there already doing it. And that shouldn't make you feel like you can't do it either. That leads into lie number 4. Nobody will care. Man, nothing could be further from the truth once again. Even if there are 10, 15, 1,000 people doing the thing that you want to do, they're not you. And I know that seems egotistical, but I promise it's not. There are so many folks in the world with such a wide range of interests that even if somebody has a superior product at the moment, they may not deliver it the same way you do. There are plenty of times where I remember one time in particular, I took my wife for our anniversary to this wonderful hotel. I mean, beautiful. And it was a Ritz-Carlton, right? And this is beyond, we don't have it like that, right? We can't just drop money on Ritz-Carltons all the time. And Ritz-Carlton is an organization that prides itself on customer service. And I have no doubt that 90% of the time they succeed there. But we had an awful experience at one. And so here was this company with this beautiful product. I mean, it's entrenched in the DNA of who they are, that customer experience. And we just didn't have that experience. And I've stayed at hotels that are a fraction of the cost, and they knew my name every time I went to the desk. Anytime there was an issue, they compensated for it. I mean, one time I think I had stayed 39 or 40 nights at a Marriott, and I had like a gift bag, and I wasn't even like a platinum member. And I'm sitting here looking at it, and I'm like, that's a prime example. I would say another example is one time I bought an online course, and this course was around $2,000. And, it had relevant experts in it. I was really excited. This was people outside of my domain. I really was focused and engaged with it. But the course, the outline of it and just the layout of it in general wasn't intuitive. It was cool from the standpoint, I guess, that I got to watch some high quality videos, but it was really hard to get the notes. And it was really, if you were able to get the notes, they were kind of they weren't edited well. It was kind of, it just didn't seem like it was what I paid for. Conversely, I paid for courses that are $300, a fraction of the price. And you could do that thing. You could not only watch videos, but you could download slides. You could, you'd be able to take those slides and you had homework, and it was a lot more engaging and what have you. And it was a fraction of the price. And so again, if somebody's got a better product or more experience or what have you, you can always beat them on the delivery of that. There are people that get fat and happy with where they sit in this entitled position, then you can always out deliver. Or, you can make a better quality product. I think that's something we tried doing too with some of our courses. When I had bought other courses, it seemed like people just kind of set up tripods and they were videotaping themselves in front of a screen, which is cool. I mean, that's a starting point, and you got to do what you got to do. But I felt like this could probably be a little bit better. And so let's try to figure out if we can get higher quality audio, higher quality video. If people are going to spend their hard-earned money on these things, what can we do to make it a better experience? So somebody will care because there's some other way that you can deliver that. You provide a unique user experience, or, provide a neat connection point. Maybe there's somebody that does what you want to do, but they do it with larger groups, right? Well, great. Do something a little bit more intimate. We do that with our apprenticeship workshops. While everybody else is trying to fit 300, 400, 1,000 people in an arena, we're going the other way. We like having 15 to 20 people and going super deep. So there's innumerable options out there for what you can do, but I promise there's somebody else that even if you have no clue what you're doing and you're filled with self-doubt and you're anxious and what have you, you even starting a brand that deals with guiding people that feel like you through it, somebody will care. That's the beauty of the law of large numbers. Somebody will care. You have to get over that. And I'm going to challenge you on something. Saying nobody will care, there are some people that genuinely believe that. And then there are some people that just kind of use that as an excuse. And you know who you are. And I'm saying that lovingly. But you're putting up all these artificial roadblocks really because you like that safety and security. It's just easier for you to say, well, there's just so many other people doing it. And, this is the issue why, and I would, but this, or I can't afford to do this at the time. Or, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to look at that and think, are you maybe just not ready yet? And you've convinced yourself you're not ready, or maybe you don't really care enough about the topic you want to do. Because when you have something that you're passionate about sharing and you have a little bit of knowledge on it and it really brings you to life and you feel like I want to help people, something that silly shouldn't stop you. So somebody will care. I don't care if it's one person, two people, three people. That's how any of these things start. Find the first 10 evangelists, or think about the people that ask you these questions of your subject matter expertise the most, and keep going back to the well. See what other questions they have for you. Help them. Then see what comes of that. Help them a little bit more. Build a solution for this. Provide them with guidance. You'd be surprised at how many people actually do care. All right, lie number 5, and this is something that impacted me tremendously. That if you have a great idea or a truly valuable skill set, that things are going to quickly, right? So if you have been doing something and man, it's been 4 years, it's been 5 years, and yeah, you have a little bit of a following, you've been making some traction, you're definitely in a better place than you were back then, but it just still feels like you haven't broken through. You may be inclined to think, well, what am I doing? Does anybody really care? And man, do I know I felt like that. And I'm sharing a lot of vulnerable, like just straight up ego with you guys, right? Here is pure ego. Here it is. My book has been translated in 5 languages, which is nothing. I mean, there's major New York Times bestselling books out there that have been published in so many and translated in so many other books or what have you, but languages. But, my book is almost sold really by the end of this year, as long as it keeps going, more than 200,000 copies. And that's self-published, right? There was a point in time where I wouldn't acknowledge that feat because I didn't think it was humble. But, I'm going to acknowledge that. And I think that was pretty cool. And I think that's an accomplishment. Yet I don't have literary agents calling me off the, nonstop. I'm not on, any kind of major, like massive podcast or what have you getting interviewed. Yet sometimes you'll hear about a book or this and that. And it's kind of, it's a quaint book. It's popularized and all these things. And all of a sudden this person's on a press tour. They've got TED Talks. They've got all these things. And I'm sitting here thinking, time out. From everything I heard, it was harder. It's hard. Like basically if you sell 10,000 copies as a self-published author, you've made it. And here we know that this has moved several 100,000 and it's been translated. Why don't I have people reaching out to me? Am I just not likable? Is it not this? Is it not that? But then you look around and you start realizing, guys, it's just not that simple. Some of the people that if they blow up faster than you, they have unique access to resources. They have friends that I had a buddy that he admitted, he said, listen, I had an in one of the departments at the college that I worked at, or I had a buddy that did this and they introduced you to. So like, don't think that if you're doing something and it's good, but it hasn't like really blown up on the mainstream yet, that it's just worthless. Guys, you never know. You're one introduction away, or you're one listener away, or you're one next move away from meeting that person that might be a critical part of your support system. Now, let me just say this, because I think that this is something we don't talk about enough. It is okay to acknowledge your ego. There's plenty of times where I probably wouldn't have told you what I just told you because I'd feel like you guys are going to think I'm just an ass. Like, oh, here's Brett boo-hooing. He's got, this book that did really well, but he doesn't have a literary agent. But the truth is people feel like this all the time. I used to work with athletes that felt like, when am I going to get my shot? I've done this. I'm hitting at this kind of percentage. I have this many stolen bases, or I did this in college. I got great film and I did pretty good at the combine, but why am I getting overlooked? guys, it's just how life is sometimes. Everything happens everything doesn't happen on our time. So that goes back to, again, line number 2, you don't have to grind, but you do have to be consistent. And you have to see it through. I mean, you guys don't need me to tell you. There's so many books that say, the majority of people that succeeded were just about to quit, and if you just keep going, you'll see it. But there is truth in that. Just don't worry about it. Stay focused on what you're doing. Continue to provide value over time. There's nobody out there that is just going to all of a sudden be able to come and validate you and knight you and be like, yes, you have the idea. You're ready now. Like, that just doesn't happen. And there are plenty of people that jump to that too soon. And their product really, product is a relative term. Their service or their value offering or what have you just isn't ready to hold up at that level. So understand and take a view of the apprenticeship model, right? We know that a classic apprentice, in terms of historical representation, that was a 7+ year thing, guys. That took time. And so when I have people that feel like, I haven't gotten much of a following, or I started a podcast and I'm 10 episodes in and nobody seems to care, I'm like, you're 10 episodes in? You shouldn't worry about any of that unless you have 100 episodes. You're 3 months in. Who are you expecting to follow you within 3 months? I mean, the amount of people that have to see something to be reminded of it and engage with it, the noise out there is tremendous. So you absolutely just have to keep going, and you can't let these lies submerge you. Because when you stop the lies, you get closer to knowing the truth. When you stop the lies and you quit telling yourself these things that provide easy outs or allow you to kind of just amplify your anxieties, you create a bigger blind spot. Things that would have been in clear focus for you now become blurred, and they were in your periphery to begin with. And that's the last thing you want. You can't operate in the fog like that. So I know it's not enough just to tell you what these lies are. You've got to be able to flip them around. You've got to be able to counter these things and say, okay, I know I tell myself this, but how can I leverage that? How can I start building momentum? And that's just about truth telling, guys. That is all about truth telling. Now, if you're passionate about this and you just feel like you've been stuck and you're trying to figure out, again, the next move or how to take something to the next level or how to brand yourself in the right way so that you don't come off scammy, salesy, and you can really get your true personality across so that you can provide value to other people. If that's your bag, make sure, again, go to artofcoaching.com/blind spot. We got 2 more episodes on this stuff, and we're coming out with more and more resources, because if there's one thing that 2020 taught us, it's that everybody can use a little bit more help. And that's not bad to admit. People need what you have to offer. You got to put it in front of them, though, and you got to get out of your own way to do so. That's today's episode, guys. Brett Bartholomew from The Art of Coaching, signing off.